This is big breaking news. President Trump has just made multiple major announcements and major warnings as well too for the United States and for international relations as well. You might want to be stocking up for November and December. Potentially your Christmas shopping could be affected, things like that. So get ready now before these changes go into effect on November 1st. So let's get into all the details. There's a lot of things going on. We have a major medical announcement, we have a major economic announcement, and lots of stuff going on. But you can see here it says Trump just posted this on his Truth Social account, and he said, quote, "It has just been learned that China has taken extraordinarily aggressive positions on trade and sending an extremely hostile letter to the world, stating that they were going to, effective November 1st, 2025, impose large scale export controls on virtually every product they make, and some not even made by them. This affects all countries without exception and was obviously a plan devised by them years ago. It's absolutely unheard of in international trade and a moral disgrace in dealing with other nations. Based on the fact that China has taken this unprecedented position and speaking only for the USA and not other nations who are similarly threatened, starting November 1st, 2025, or sooner, depending on any further actions or changes taken by China, the United States of America will impose a tariff of 100% on China over and above any tariff that they are currently paying. Also, on November 1st, we will impose export controls on any and all critical software. It is impossible to believe that China would have taken such an action, but they have, and the rest is history. Thank you for your attention to this matter. All right, so China has put essentially export controls on rare earth minerals and critical minerals for exports to other countries. Okay, so this is what Trump is responding to, and they sent this letter out to all the countries warning this is going to go into effect on November 1st, that they are putting all these different export controls in place. Okay, and China actually processes around 80% of all of the rare earth mineral processing. Okay, that's slowly changing right now because the US in the past few years and is continuing. They've built multiple processing centers in Colorado and Texas, and there's also multiple rare earth mines that have opened up in the past few years in Georgia and California. Okay, so these things are changing, and this is big that Trump's announcing this. Okay, so if you need to get anything that goes through China for the supply chain, you should probably get a hold of it before November 1st. Okay, we're seeing also big major health announcements as well too from Trump. We will get to that in just a second. All right, but I wanted to read one more Truth Social post from him as well too. You can see here he said some very strange things are happening in China. They are becoming very hostile and sending letters to countries throughout the world. They want to impose export controls on each and every element of production having to do with rare earths and virtually anything else they can think of, even if it's not manufactured in China. Nobody has ever seen anything like this, but essentially it would, quote, clog the markets and make life difficult for virtually every country in the world, especially for China. We have been contacted by other countries who are extremely angry at this great trade hostility which came out of nowhere. Our relationship with China over the past 6 months has been a very good one, thereby making this move on trade an even more surprising one. I've always felt that they have been lying in wait, and now, as usual, I have been proven right. There is no way that China should be allowed to hold the world, quote, captive, but that seems to have been their plan for quite some time, starting with the, quote, magnets and other elements that they have quietly amassed into somewhat of a monopoly position, a rather sinister and hostile move, to say the least. But the US monopoly position is also much stronger and more far reaching than China's. I have just not chosen to use them. There was never a reason for me to do so until now. The letter that they sent is many pages long and details with great specificity each and every element that they want to withhold from other nations. Things that were routine are no longer routine at all. I have not spoken to President Xi because there was no reason to do so. This was a real surprise not only to me but to all leaders of the free world. I was to meet President Xi in 2 weeks at APEC in South Korea, but now there seems to be no reason to do so. The Chinese letters were especially inappropriate in that this was a day that, after 3,000 years of bedlam and fighting, there is peace in the Middle East. I wonder if the timing was coincidental. Depending on what China says about the hostile, quote, order that they have just put out, I will be forced as President of the United States to financially counter their move. For every element that they have been able to monopolize, we have too. I never thought it would come to this, but perhaps, as with all things, the time has come. Ultimately, though potentially painfully, it will be very it will be a very good thing in the end for the United States of America. One of the policies that we are calculating at this moment is massive increase in tariffs on Chinese products coming into the United States of America. There are many other countermeasures that are likewise under serious consideration. Thank you for your attention to this matter, President Trump. All right, so very serious rhetoric and tone coming from Trump against China. And I wish he would put this letter out so we can see it, because it's probably shocking. Okay, and China has been holding this card for a long time, the rare earth mineral card, and they are finally playing this card, it seems. And this is a big deal because our military needs these. Okay, so this is big, and this could be a big sign that China is getting ready for war. Okay, I've been warning this for years at this point, that the big play that China is going to make before their military move or during it is going to be a move on the supply chain, because they have this monopoly on all of these goods coming out of China that they can produce very easily, and they have a monopoly on the rare earth critical minerals. It's 80 to 90% of all the processing, not all the mining, but all the processing facilities, so they can sift and sort out the different minerals are in China. Okay, it's something that they've heavily invested in. Okay, and a lot of the military components as well too are made in China. A lot of the supply chains for the military are the same exact supply chains that you and I can access commercially, okay, through consumers. Okay, so a lot of the things are the same products. They're just, maybe they're built a little different or branded a little differently, but they come from the same factories. Okay, China also has a major monopoly on die cast aluminum parts as well too, which are critical for motors, engines, things like that. Okay, so they are playing a major card right now, this rare earth mineral card, and they are putting export controls on this. Okay, so that means they are the ones that are going to decide who gets which rare earth minerals and who doesn't, and how much they can get and how much they will be allowed to process. Okay, that's essentially what they're saying here, is that if we don't want you to process X amount of this critical mineral, then we won't allow that. Then you can only process, a certain amount every single month, and that amount is only going to be exported. So it used to be kind of like a free market. It's like whatever the businesses need, whatever these contractors need, they can have access to it, full steam ahead. They were building up their refining capacity. Now that they have the refining capacity, they have a monopoly on it. They are now clamping down and saying, look, only X amount of this particular mineral is going to be exported out of China. Okay, so this is huge. This is a national security threat, and don't be surprised if this isn't settled soon for these tariffs to even increase even more, okay? And these tariffs are an effective tool and weapon that Trump can use, but it also is kind of a double-edged sword as well too, because this will cause price increases inside the United States, and it'll also create potential shortages or scarcity of certain things, especially electronics, could heavily be affected. Okay, especially things for the military like night vision and radars. They desperately need these specific rare earth minerals, and China has a total monopoly on them. Okay, so the US needs to start heavily investing in these rare earth minerals. The Trump administration actually just signed a deal with Alaska to build the quote Ambler Road project. Okay, this is I can't remember how many miles it is, but it's hundreds of miles. It might be 1,000 miles. This road that connects the outer mining area of Alaska, the outer areas, to the more centralized hubs and to the ports. Okay, so this is going to open up a lot of critical rare earth mineral mining in Alaska as well too. They just signed this deal a couple of days ago. All right, and that's a major check and balance on China and Russia. The US should be the number one. The US should be the one processing all these rare earth minerals. We should have the monopoly on this. We're the ones using most of them, so we should be the ones mining and processing, and we actually have abundant resources in the United States for this, and we could easily trade with other countries that have abundant resources for this too and do their refining at a discounted rate than China just to get their business. Okay, this is the moves that the United States needs to be making right now, and I think the Trump administration is working on these things behind the scenes. All right, we'll get to this major announcement from Trump in just a second. He just announced this today. This is a big medical announcement, but I wanted to talk right here really quick too about this top U.S. trade rep. He's just kind of laying out exactly what's going on with these tariffs and everything too. Let's listen to this really quick.
The status tonight with the U.S. and China and trade.
Well, Brett, you've seen the president's truths today. I've been there with him throughout the day, working with him on a response. What the Chinese have done, in short, is in the past couple of days, they've ordered the entire world that they have to submit for approval and permission by the Chinese government to export any kinds of materials that include rare earths that have been touched, processed, mined by China. So this could include cars, it could include microwaves that have chips, it can include defense materials. So China has taken this action, which is quite extreme. And so President Trump obviously wants to safeguard U.S. national and economic security. And so we have to take our own countervailing action.
What's the status tonight with the U.S.?
So you heard that, how far reaching these export controls can be. He's saying it can affect cars, it can affect microwaves, phones, electronics, military equipment. All of these things are going, like, it's in everything. They're in everything. These rare earth minerals. And even if they weren't mined in China, okay, they were just imported in, refined, processed, and then exported. That's it. There's still export controls, much less if they were imported in and then assembled, manufactured into electronics. That's going to be affected from these export controls too. So that's why I was telling you guys, if you need to do any, Christmas shopping or things like that. I know it's early, but maybe try to do it before November 1st if you have the time or money to do it, because some of these things might not be available, or their prices might be, doubled to get them, and there might be scarcity. So Hopefully that doesn't happen. Hopefully they can come to some type of trade deal, but this is getting pretty intense out of nowhere. And these battles, there's just battle after battle, right? Multiple fronts. We're seeing these battles over different things. And now we're seeing an economic battle. And be on the lookout. This is big for China to potentially make some type of military move. Okay, because this is exactly what their playbook would be. All right, you can see here, here's a look at the stock market reacting to this news here from President Trump. I believe it was like over $1.5 trillion wiped out. But it'll come back. Okay, when stuff like this happens, it's mostly temporary. It always rebounds, and this could be an opportunity if you're into investing to buy low. Okay, I'm not giving it any advice or anything. I'm not into, you know, getting deep into this or anything, but look at it as an opportunity. All right, maybe some of these stocks that you wanted are on discount today from the drop here, so you could look at it glass half full. And if you just hold on to your portfolio, your stocks, then they're gonna go back up, and this money's gonna recover. So don't panic or anything like that. But markets are already reacting, even in after hours. This was announced late Friday afternoon. I believe he announced it at like 5 or 6 p.m. Maybe even later Eastern time. And market's already reacting, okay, even after our reactions in the market. So lots of stuff going on. There's also been another major earthquake I wanted to hit too. Look at this thing. 7.6 just hit the Drake Passage as well too. So we just reported on a major one that happened yesterday. It was downgraded to a 6.7. It was initially reported as a 7.6, I believe, just like this one that just hit the Drake Passage down here below South America. All right, so there was actually initial warnings for a tsunami threat in Chile on the coastal areas within 1,000 kilometers of the initial epicenter. But it seems like there were not any major tsunami waves or anything like that. But people were on high alert. Some people ordered to evacuate. And you can see here some aftershocks hitting the Drake Passage as well too. And we actually had a big one hit the Drake Passage just last month. Okay, I believe it was in the high sevens, just like this one. So pretty significant. All right, and every time it goes up in magnitude, it's at least around 10 times stronger. Okay, so a 7 is around 10 times stronger than a 6. So if you keep, it's exponential. So once you're getting into 7 and 8 territory, these are very powerful earthquakes that can be devastating, that can cause major shifts on the earth, movements, landslides, liquefaction, and can even cause tsunamis and even flooding if we see redirections of things like creeks and rivers and streams, lakes. We see that happen all the time. Okay, there's lakes in the US that were formed by earthquakes. Okay, I think there's one called Earthquake Lake that was formed by an earthquake that opened up and dammed up a river. Okay, so these things are powerful. All right, these earthquakes, and you can see the United States just in the past 24 hours, continental United States, we're seeing around 127 earthquakes hit. All right, we're seeing a lot of activity along the Cascadia subduction zone over here, 3.0, and some earthquakes in Oregon and Washington. So be on the lookout, be prepared. I think the United States is overdue for a big one soon. All right, we keep getting lucky, we keep avoiding these 7s and 8s, but I think we could see one hit the United States. So just be prepared, be ready, be stocked up, have a plan. Don't be scared, be prepared, and have a plan so something does happen, you're ready for it. All right. Let's get into more news here. All right, you can just see where this tsunami threat was issued. You can see this purple pin here along the coast of Chile in South America. That's where this initial tsunami threat was issued for people along the coastline within 1,000 kilometers. All right, so this we just had one last night. This is wild to see this, and the Earth is undergoing major readjustments and major realignments, and the sun right now too is at one of its all-time maximum phases, okay, for solar activity, which could potentially be linked to some of this earthquake activity. All right, sun's electromagnetic when it releases these CMEs, coronal mass ejections, and solar flares, then that electromagnetic radiation potentially interacts with the Earth and causes realignments and readjustments when it hits the Earth's magnetic field, which is generated from the core, which is underneath the tectonic plates. Okay, so it's all related, it's all interconnected, and that could be why potentially we're seeing these big earthquakes hitting all the time. All right, let's get into a little bit more news on this big health update from Trump, and then we'll talk more about it.
AstraZeneca, the largest pharmaceutical manufacturer in the United Kingdom, is committing to offer Americans major discounts on their vast catalog of prescription drugs, one of the great companies, by the way, and a most favored nation's pricing clause. So most favored nation is you're going to pay whatever the lowest price anywhere in the world is. That's what you're going to be paying. And I had it going very well in my first term, but we were interrupted by a rigged election, so I was unable to carry it forward. We started it, but this was something one of the reasons I wanted to run again was we had to have favored nations where the world is not going to be paying just a fraction, just a tiny fraction of what we were paying. I want to thank CEO Pascal Soriot, a very highly respected, one of the most respected men in business and certainly in the industry, for joining us today, as well as Secretary Howard Lutnick, Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr., CMS Administrator Mehmet Oz, FDA Commissioner Marty McCary, and Virginia Governor, a man who's done an incredible job. And good luck with the upcoming election. I know you're working very hard. I watch you. You're right there. He's out there working. He wants to see that young woman win. And the Attorney General, who I endorsed, et cetera, et cetera. Glenn Youngkin. Thank you very much, Glenn. Thank you for being here. For many years, Americans have paid the highest prices anywhere in the world for prescription drugs by far, Many times the amount that other countries are paying is ridiculous. Upon taking office, I signed an executive order to make sure that Americans pay no more for prescription medications than the lowest price or the same drug in other locations in developing nations. Today, AstraZeneca is committing to offer all of their prescription medications to Medicaid at most favored nations prices. In other words, the lowest price anywhere in the world, that's what we get. A move that will save American taxpayers hundreds of millions of dollars each year. And I tell the story, Glenn, that in my first term, I had the honor of being the first president in 28 years to lower drug prices during the course of the year. And we actually did, and I was so proud of myself. We called a news conference. I announced it. It was 1/8 of 1%. 1/8 of 1%. Now drug prices are going to be going down 100%, 400%, 600%, 1,000% in some cases. But for 1/8 of a cent, Bobby, think of that. I was so proud because for 28 years, nobody had done it. And now it's, I think back to that, I said I shouldn't have had that news conference. But it is true. I was the only one that did it, but it was not very much. And now we're going to get, in some cases, 1,000% reduction. This is going to have a huge impact on everything from Social Security to Medicare to Medicaid, anything where they're buying any prescription drugs. It's going to have an incredible impact. It's going to lower itself greatly. AstraZeneca will also list many of their most popular drugs online at TrumpRx.gov. TrumpRx. I don't know why they put the name Trump. I did not tell them to do it, but I'm honored to let them do it. It's true, actually.
Right, so you heard that there. I wanted to get that in there. The TrumpRx.gov. Okay, that's pretty wild. And it's true. It's so common sense, but it's something that's been going on for decades, is that the United States has been subsidizing the rest of the world's medicine prices. It's absolutely insane. So Europe, everywhere, essentially everywhere, gets their drug prices extremely cheap, dirt cheap prices. And then in the United States, the drug prices are insane. You know, it'll be $1,000 for something here, and then it'll be a couple dollars. It'll be $10 in Europe for the same thing. And it's because the United States subsidizes all of the research and all of the medical, you know, the backbone, the medical exploration that went into finding this medicine and testing it, all this stuff. And you're subsidizing it and paying it. And then they make a generic brand and it's in Europe for $10. It's crazy. So this is now starting to be equalized, and AstraZeneca will now be offering their drugs at the quote preferred nation price. So something that seems like should have been happening all along. I don't know why we're like the non-preferred nations. Like everyone else gets the preferred price, and then we get the non-preferred. We just get, scammed. And that, it seems like that happens a lot in America and with Americans, is that, we're just like expected to foot the bill, right? And kind of just take it because it's like, oh, you guys are rich, so you guys can take it. The country's $40 trillion in debt, almost, very close. So this is a good thing. Hopefully this leads to more drugs dropping in price and becoming more accessible for people. So let me know what you guys think down below. Hope you guys are staying safe, staying prepared out there. Hope you have big blessings for your life and your family. And I hope you have a big old blessed day.